Charreah Jackson. Oh, I am so excited to welcome you to the Move to Millions podcast. How are you today?
Phenomenal. I'm on the Move to Millions podcast. I'm so excited to be here.
I just love you. Before we even have you tell everybody who you are in your own words, I just love you because you are such a champion for me and the work that I get to do out in the world. And so it's so good just to know that you see it, you get it, you understand it, and you've experienced it. So just thank you.
Thank you. I mean, you have been a pivotal part in my move to millions. So I'm just really, and we've been friends for years before I was a client. So it's just exciting, the full circleness. And shout out to all the fellow listeners. Usually I'm on the other side. So I'm very giddy to be on this side.
And I'm so pumped for this conversation. So before we get ahead of ourselves, just take a quick moment and tell everybody who you are in your own words.
All right, allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is Charreah Katie Jackson. I am a God girl. I am an AT alien. I am an amplifier and a storyteller, helping leaders, executives, and teams increase their impact on lives and making more money by deepening authority and increasing your visibility. And so I am a 20-year media pro. 10 of those years I spent at the world's largest magazine publisher, where I was an executive and senior editor, and now run my own company, Shine Army, where we get to do exciting work, really helping leaders step up, stand out, and be seen.
I love it. You said so many things that I wrote down just that fast. Of course, I'm always enamored to talk to a fellow God girl. Okay. So we will absolutely circle back around the block and talk about God girls because it's coming up again, right? We're actually right now in our promotion cycle for the next God Girls Making Millions. We are going to be in West Palm Beach this year, which I'm excited about. Brand new.
I got to be at the first God Girls Making Millions, and life-changing and expansive and all the things. So really excited for this year.
Yeah, so good. You said I'm an amplifier and a storyteller on a mission to help people deepen their authority. Oh,
Yes.
good. That's so good. And I know you spent 10 years at Essence. You didn't say Essence. Essence is not sponsoring this podcast, but we're just going to go ahead and put it out
And
there.
most of those years, Time Inc. So Essence was owned by Time Inc. for the majority of the time I worked there. So yes, I was at Essence, and I also worked on People, Fortune, Time, Money, some of the other brands. So yep, a very proud Essence alum.
Yeah, and I know for the Black women that listen to this show, Essence is everything, right? I remember the first time, I think I've been featured in Essence maybe 4 times. And I remember the very first time, actually wasn't your feature. I think your feature was the largest feature of me, but I did a feature where someone called me and asked me a couple of questions. And so I have like a little paragraph in there about tithing time to yourself. It was
Come
like
on.
it was like a December, what busy women should do over the holiday so that they go into the new year like fresh and grounded or something like that. And I remember that quote. But I remember for so long just having this insatiable desire and also this beckoning to be, as you said, seen, known, featured, paid through media, right? And so to think about you and what I love about you, I've also been your client in addition to you being mine, and the difference that it makes and really just understanding what you just said, amplifier and storyteller. So I really want to pull on that. We've had a lot of conversations with amazing people on the show, and I haven't heard anybody use those two words together. And I think that there is significance in amplifying the story. So to kind of set us on a trajectory to do just that, I would love to hear some of your backstory. So of course, I know you as my client, but most of these people, they might not know you. So let's go all the way back.
Yes.
Even before you were at Essence, like what was the first defining moment that you could recall when you knew that you were not just meant to be any old average run of the mill, insert whatever title you would want to insert? Like, when did that come upon you?
I mean, it's a series. I've been that girl my whole life now. Okay.
I love that.
Now, did I always know it? No. However, I would say from an impact standpoint, I feel just as proud of standing up for Judith, who the kids in my first grade class called Booger Girl. I've always stood up and understood the power of my voice. So I was the little girl at 4 years old praying at my Bible preschool, did speakers contents as a child. And it was on a debate team, oratorical contest. So I always was someone who was looked at as someone to listen to. And I think in high school, as I started to develop as a writer, I really understood, like I was able to, I call myself, and now I just say I magnetize the blessings God has for me. I used to call it a manifester. But one of the first things I manifested was tickets to 50 Cent's concert when I was a senior in high school. But most important, really answer your question, I really understood, wow, you can influence impact when I was on the student newspaper. Shout out to the Hilltop, 100 years old, Howard University's school newspaper. And I had a girl in my sociology class. I was a sophomore. She was paraplegic in a wheelchair and was in class every day. And one day she was late in the shuttle. And I just thought to myself, I see students complaining, and here's someone who is on a wheelchair and getting to class on time. There's another young lady who was blind, had her walking through campus. And so I ended up doing an article just profiling them. And what I didn't realize then, I understood now, the liability to have students with disabilities complaining around some of their accommodations. And it instantly got response. It instantly led to changes. They fixed it made it easier for her to be able to come off and on the sidewalk. But I think that was the first time I really saw, wow, the power of my word to really circulate and lead to change. And I just wanted to continue to have impact in other people's lives and amplify things that were important to me. And because I say that to say I've had a career in visibility, because I also know what it feels like to feel invisible. And so growing up in third grade at Columbia Elementary, there was a production of Mary Poppins, and the star of Mary Poppins, well, you're listening to her right now. Fast forward a few years later, seventh grade, Miller Grove Middle School, go out for a production of Grease. Long story short, they called the lead of the show. It wasn't me. I got cast in nothing. And it was the first time I really felt invisible. And so I've had a career, as you've talked about, of hyper visibility, profiled over 1,000 people, produced over 300 national news articles and segments, whether I was featured or featuring someone else during my tenure as a magazine editor, or also amplifying leaders as a marketing and PR strategist in this chapter. And so I'm someone who understands how impactful it is to show up and share, and how it changes people's lives. I think one of my highlights from my Essence decade was I did an article about what to say back when a man doesn't want to use a condom. And so we just flipped the script. We just, all the things he's going to say, can't feel nothing, I'm too big, all the things he's going to say. And we gave a script. And I just never forget this woman named Lauren, who found my personal email address and emailed me and said, I had a date and he said one of those things. And I was so prepared because I had read your article. And it just was confirmation that we really can impact other people's lives if we own our brilliance and share it.
Oh my gosh. So many things. I was writing as profusely as I could because I was trying to capture all the little nuggets. I mean, there are so many things I want to pull on. You've been that girl your whole life, even when you didn't know it, right? And I want to come back to, how did you start to know it, right? Because the woman who's sitting before me today, the people who will see the video version of this episode, is different than the woman I met all those years ago. She's different than the woman who came and worked with me a year ago in one of our programs, right? She's different today. So has it been a progression of knowing, or was it just one thing happened and instantly you're like, I've always been this girl and now I'm ready to walk in her? Like, walk us through that journey, because I feel like the ability to be able to amplify the story. And when you told the story about the two young ladies who had their specific disabilities at HU, and how you, on the outside looking in, could write a story that would create impact for them and all of the others that weren't featured in that story, because you were able to see between what you couldn't see to produce something that would create impact for other people. So when did it happen? Is it still happening? Are you still evolving? Like, I mean, come on, we need to know.
First of all, coach, you already know it's an evolution. It is ongoing and we all have the moments and we never stop, right? And it's definitely been a journey, right? And we all pick up the baton. So I've always been someone who's curious, always been a learner. And I'm gonna say this of all of us, all of the community listening to this podcast, you as the host of this podcast, anyone engaging in these types of conversation are the type of people who are always seeking to grow and expand. We are the learners. We are not fixed. We have a growth mindset. And so while I always had, was someone who was studious and studied, I didn't learn how to become a student of myself till my late 20s going into my 30s. And I'd be remiss not to mention while at Howard, my sophomore year of college, going home for Christmas break, my family and I unwrapped Christmas presents, and the next day I unwrapped a cancer diagnosis at the age of 19. Went home, went through chemo radiation. Thankfully, they caught it early. Thankfully, I'm now at 20 years since that diagnosis and still here, healthy, haven't had recurrence or really any major illness since. However, that changed me. And so at a young age, it took away this notion that I have forever to live my life. And so I don't wish a scary health diagnosis on anyone. However, for me, it woke me up at a young age to take life serious. And so that was one of those things that woke me up early. And then fast forward to as I started to feel like I had kind of starting to hit walls when it came to achieving my goals. I realized it was time to do something different. And I connected with a coach of mine, shout out to Sylvia High, who really started me on the path of transformation and giving me access to tools and language to understand how to take radical control of all of my power and to know how to create the life I desire.
Good. So good. So important. And you're right. I knew that it was an evolution, right? I think we should all be evolving at all times. And what I'm really curious about is for you, even recognizing that it is an evolution, if you can pinpoint, and maybe there isn't a defining moment, which is okay, right? Because sometimes when it's perpetual and it's happening over time, we just look up one day and we have advanced and we don't even remember the journey because it's been so gradual. But if there's anything else that stands out to you, you talked about Sylvia and really teaching you the power of transformation and how to hone in for yourself, right? Those self-soothing tools. I think coaching as a modality is great, but it is only great if you are taught to fish, right? Not if someone just keeps feeding you the fish, but you're actually giving it. Is there a moment when you think about the journey, and even the cancer diagnosis, right? And recognizing the significance of, whoa, I don't have forever and I don't have time to quote unquote waste, right? I think a lot of people say time is money, but I've come to realize that time is not money, time is life, right? We can always get more money, but we cannot always get more life. And that's why I made the decision at 48 last year to get healthy and to put my health and wellness at the forefront of everything that I have been doing. And, losing 35 pounds and changing all the numbers and all the things as a result of that, like that being one of those defining moments. So if you could catalog 3 moments, you've given us the cancer, you've given us Sylvia, is there another moment that you would catalog as a defining moment? Maybe it's one that's more recent, that really has made the difference in you stepping boldly into being the amplifier and storyteller that you are today.
Absolutely. I mean, definitely, I've had many. And just to focus in, so in this season, I run a business full time that has hired me as its CEO,
Mm,
and a business I started. So my last day in corporate in February of 2019 was definitely one of those definitive moments, and also was a confirmation of the power of life and death and the power of the tongue. And so at that point, Rewind 2018, my first book is published. I'm on a national book tour that I'm producing, doing media while also still running the lifestyle department at Essence. And so it's busy, I'm burning out, and I knew it was time for my next. I had gone as far, I had done everything I went into the magazine world to do, and there was so much more that required more time and focus than having a full-time job that at the time I was expected to be in office 5 days a week. And
mhm,
so in the fall of 2018, I was at work and in a meeting and started crying. And it was a moment where they were just asking about, it was just about stories and, oh, Charreah, you should do an article about celebrity homes. And at that point, I'd been 10 years, 12 years out of school, 10 years in Matt. And I'm like, I'm tired of talking about other people and their lives and their houses. I want my own mansion. And so I found myself, and it was right after my pastor had said, the way we cheat death is to live, that I knew I had expired, and it was time for me to get up and give that seat to somebody who would be excited to do those stories. And so I remember a few weeks later, I went to lunch with one of my good girlfriends, Sandy Garcia. And by this point, I had been talking about leaving my job and going on to my next for a couple of years. And so she was tired of me talking about it. And shout out to the friends who will not let us stay small and stay stuck. So I was doing a little story, and she said, Charreah, by when are you leaving? And this was December 26th, day after Christmas. I said, by my birthday. My birthday is February 8th. February 6th was my last day in corporate. And it just was so confirmation that you have the power to speak over your life. And what I spoke came into existence. And, this year I celebrated 5 years, and your girl ain't missed a meal or a bill, thank God, and have been able to grow a business that has, was at started the business 2020. We were at 6 figures within 18 months, and we've been able to steadily grow and expand. So I'm really proud and grateful for that. But I look back and know it was those moments where I had to get honest with myself that it was time for something new.
Yeah, I love that. And every time I hear the word honest, I think about our super friend, Patrice Washington. Shout out Patrice. And how she talks about radical honesty, right? And it's hard to be radically honest, but it is also fulfilling because you recognize that there is more available.
Yes.
Right? Just that there's more available. And I feel like, Charreah, like even just anchoring into the fact that there's more available is enough for it to create an opening, for it to create capacity for more to begin to flow into your life experience. And we've certainly seen that just throughout your journey and what it is that you've been able to accomplish over time. There are a couple of things you just said in this last little subset that I wanted to pull on, because I want to make sure everyone heard it. And more importantly, that they stand in the power to be able to speak the same thing over themselves. You said, I have the pleasure and the privilege to run a business full-time that has hired me to be the CEO. I love that. It's like, oh, that's good. I need to write that down, because it is a privilege. And there are so many people who their business is not handling their needs. And so either they are still working in a full-time job, or they're driving Uber or Lyft. I'm sorry. No, I'm not laughing at y'all. If you out there driving Uber and Lyft, do what you got to do. I get it. There was a point in time if you've been listening to the show.
It's a high, because people think, oh, I run my own business, I get to do what I want to do. You gotta, you being responsible to what you, and I say this as someone who had to only in the last 2 years, and shout out to Move to Millions and Darnyelle's trainings, they've helped me really step up and show up as a CEO. So I had a business, but it's only been in the last 2 years that I had to step up to say, actually, this is, it's up to me for this to stabilize and scale.
Yeah. I think that's so important. And that's why I wanted to pull on that, because I think, I feel like I say this all the time, but there's so many charlatans in the marketplace, right? And there's so many people that are leading the charge and letting it be okay to believe that without figuring out how to create an operational infrastructure so that you can actually be the CEO, right? I remember back in 2007, when I started this company, I got business cards printed that said Darnyelle A. Jervey, CEO. And I was anything but a CEO. I was literally 1 second from bankruptcy, which did end up overtaking me in 2010. And even once I came back into the business full time, I still wasn't the CEO. It took a while. Today, I'm the CEO. At the time of recording this interview, I'm in the Bahamas, y'all. Like, that's why the background looked different for those of you who will see this on video. Like, I'm in the Bahamas, but guess what? I just looked at the reports yesterday, how much money the company brought in, and I was not part of it. I said one thing to my operations manager in preparation to leave based on the goal that we set for the month of September at the time of this recording. I was like, we have to hit our goal. Like, it is not okay. Some months, I don't know if you do this, Charreah, but some months I dial it in. I'm like, well, you know, but we've done so well. Like, it's been a great month. Like, just, we don't need to push any further. And I was like, no, I had my meeting with my CFO last week. And the CFO was like, no, this is the amount that needs to come in. And I said to my operations manager, this what needs to come in. And so that means we need $25,000 to come in this last week of September. Create a plan for me. And when you have the team meeting today, because I wasn't at the team meeting, Charreah, because I'm in the Bahamas. When you have the meeting, I need you to send me the plan after of what everybody is doing to make sure an additional $25,000 comes into this business. We're recording this interview on a Tuesday. That conversation took place on a Monday. Can I tell you that since that conversation happened, $8,500 has come into the business. And I wasn't privy to it. I wasn't part of how that happened. So saying all of that to say, acknowledging the fact that you run a business that has hired you to be the CEO and you get to operate as a CEO is a big deal. And you just heard Charreah say that she didn't wake up like this, that although she started her business and it was an idea in 2018, it was official in 2020, it's really just been in the last 2 years that has made a difference for her. What else, when you think about, I'm going to go back and look at my notes because there was something else that you said that I wanted to talk about. Oh yeah, you talked about growth mindset and being a student of yourself. Can you pull on that a little bit for us?
That has changed my life. And it is, you know, so my company is Shine Arm. We have a framework called Shine. All of our service wrapped around it. S is around story, the stories we tell ourselves and being empowered to create what happens next. H, who we help. I, invoice, packaging and selling our services. And then in network, which most people know me around, how do we leverage who we know in OPP, other people's people with media and speaking and content. All of that gets us to the E, which is exposure. And so the foundation back to the S is the story. And most people want to jump over that. But one of the quickest ways to accelerate your impact, your success, your visibility, and your profitability is to better own who you are and leverage your strengths. And so when I say a student of myself, it's so profound now. I know my weaknesses just as much as I own and honor my strengths, so I can plan for who I am. So that's through journaling. That's through really taking time to review myself and my habits. And as we know, entrepreneurship is the biggest mirror. It shows you who you are like nothing else. And so being able to really be intentional to study the only person I will spend every day of my life with, which is me. And we don't live in a culture that teaches you how to have strong relationship with self and how foundational that is. Even when you read the word, like when the disciples asked Jesus, of all these commandments, what are the key? And he says, the first 3, love God with all your heart, then love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Yeah.
Means I can only love other people as good as I love me. So I'm gonna go say hate, but that whole I love you more is BS. You can't love me more than you love you. And so
Charreah, oh my God. Okay, that's so good. That is so good. I love it. Oh, that is so good. And you're right. And I know I have been victim of saying I love you more to people. Like now, lately, I've been like doubted, but you're right. I should never say I love you more because I need to love me more. Oh, I love that. That's a breakthrough for me. Okay, so what does it look like to study yourself? Could you break that down for us?
absolutely, I got whole Excel sheets of me.
Okay. Oh, I love it.
I think it's the reality is, and particularly this community, we students. We on here taking notes, listening to this podcast. So if all the notebooks we have of the Excel sheets and all the templates, where are we tracking us?
Mm-hmm.
And you're good about that. One of the things I added to my personal tracker of I have a list of goals, I have a list of dreams, I have a blessing bank where I honor what did God already give me. I have a
Mm-hmm.
download bank of what God told me. And I love one of the things you talk about is that whole life happens in stages of 7. So I have 1 through 7 cycles. I studied my cycle, what happened in each year, what are the themes that I see in each year, what's my life path number. So there are lots of tools and modalities of ways to interpret yourself, right? We live, our culture loves horoscopes. That's one way of
Mm-hmm.
looking at life in the world, but there's many other ways you can study. So it really
Right,
looks
there's
like
lots of assessments you could take. Like, have you taken all of the assessments? I think I've
I
taken all of them. I've taken Colby and Anagram and Predictive Index and Wealth Dynamics, like all of them. I've taken all of the assessments.
that is all studying self, but also the greatest indicator who knows you best is you.
Mm-hmm.
So also that the journaling piece of studying yourself in your life. So I really am, I think, and I don't talk, it's funny, it's probably one of the first times I've talked publicly about some of the things I've done because it's just been a personal mission to better understand. Because if I'm not clear about where I am, I can never get to where I'm going because I
Ooh,
won't be. So we've got to know and be honest to face up to where am I right now so that I know, is my goal a mile from me or is
mm-hmm.
it on the move? And I can get to both, but I just need to know so that I plan and prep and get support accordingly.
That's good. So you mentioned journaling being something that's really, really powerful for you. And are you an active journaler, meaning you ask a question of God and you wait to see what the answer is? Do you just record what happened during your day? Like, talk to us about some of your journal practices.
Ooh, so I'm both. So it's
Mm-hmm.
funny. I do the traditional. I have a annual. This is my journal right here now. This is my where I do a daily 5 where I write 5 things. I
Okay.
do my calendar there, and what I have a me and God notebook, which is different. And
Yeah.
so a spiritual notebook. So on the regular side of my spiritual notebook, I just write my notes. I'll study. If we doing a prayer call, I'll write. Now, when God talks to me or I have questions of God, I flip it to the other side. And on the back, this is where I give God space. So if I have a
Okay.
question, there's things I've asked of God. I remember in transparency in the pandemic in 2020, you know, that's when it was the case of every guy I went on one date with. All my exes were reaching out, and I just asked God about my husband because I was like, "Oh, some of these guys trying to creep back," and God told me very clearly I had to download. You haven't met him yet, so it gave
Mm-hmm.
me such peace. I knew none of these knuckleheads and ex
Mm-hmm.
were my husband, but
Right.
I remember saying it on my girlfriend's call, like, oh, I haven't met him yet. How do you know that? And I had to be like, well, God told me. But that's one of the ways God talks to me. I hear other ways as well, but that's one way I am intentional to hear from the Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's so important. I know personally, also have a download bank, as you called it. Like, literally, it's just me having conversations with God, and then God having conversations. And what I typically do is I put a line down the center of the page, and I'm on the left, and God is on the right. And so I'll write, and then I'll move on. So, for instance, in the mornings, typically is when I get up and I journal what's on my heart, what's in my spirit, whatever is coming up. I just write it. And then I, go off to do whatever. And one of those things is I get on the treadmill every morning for 30 minutes. And when I'm on the treadmill, or at least 5 mornings a week, I'm speaking in my prayer language. I don't speak any English, and I'm just listening. And then when I get off the treadmill, I go back to whatever I put in that came up for me as soon as I woke up. And then I put in what came up for God. And then I literally compare the notes. And that is where every good idea, every God idea that I have ever gotten in this company that I've used, Move to Millions came from. Next Level Everything came from God. Move to Millions came from God. God Girls Making Millions came from God. All the things come from God because I literally process. I write what I heard, and then I wait for him to tell me, "Yep, that's good. That's what I want you to do." And I think that this is the same as true for you as well. For me, I decided a few years ago that God really is the chairman of the company. I used to say God is the CEO, but then he got elevated to chairman because I need to be the CEO. I need to understand the skill sets that are associated with actually fulfilling that role. And it's hard to do it if you relinquish that to him. And when I did that, we started to have even more intense and powerful board meetings, the two of us together. that would culminate into an entry inside of my journal. So, so I love that. I love the daily 5. I love taking the time and just hearing what God is saying and using that in whichever way it needs to be used at that particular point in time. Because I'm sure it comes into your coaching, it comes into the consulting that you do as a PR strategist for the select exclusive clientele that gets to work with you in that way. She ain't for everybody, y'all. I'm just gonna go in and put that out there because I know y'all listen to this conversation and you're gonna go check her out in the show
We got
notes.
something for every budget. We got something for every
Oh,
budget.
well,
So
that's good. Well, that's good. That's good to know. When I think about this, again, I want to go back to, I'm flipping my notes back. A couple of things that you said. You said, I magnetize the blessings that God has for me. And you said you used to say you manifest, but you've
yes.
changed the word to magnetize. Can you talk to us about the distinction in those two words? So you
You
thought
can
I didn't catch it, but no, girl, listen, I'm taking notes. I got plenty of notes. Look at all these notes. I got notes. All the things that are popping out to me that I need to come back to. So magnetize the blessings versus manifest. So talk to us about that.
think it is important we talk about that, particularly for the women listening. Because I used to say I'm a master manifestor, and and even that, my definition of manifesting was putting yourself in position to receive a blessing. So it's really
Mm.
a form of belief and getting in position for what you say you believe, because your actions would say what you're truly praying for, because what you truly are praying for and believing for, you're prepping for. And so
Mm.
just the distinction between
Hold
the
on,
man.
hold on, hold on, hold on. You got to say that again because I was right in the last thing. And so I didn't get to write that. So say it one more time.
It's connected because I want to make sure, particularly in this divine conversation, right? Because manifesting, there's people who don't believe in Jesus or God who say they're a manifester, and I believe
Right.
in both. And so it's important that my language align with my faith. And so
Mhm.
what I was saying was, when I said manifesting was putting yourself in position to receive a blessing, means it's an expression of faith.
Mhm.
And that goes into our prayer lives. Because even everybody who's like, oh my gosh, I want Sierra's prayer. Prayer is not words by themselves. Prayer is posture.
Ooh, that's good.
When you truly are believing and praying, and if you truly believe for what you're praying for, then you prepare for it,
Yeah.
right? If I'm praying for rain, you will see the behavior of someone who is anticipating a downflow, which is
Right.
why
You got an umbrella. At least you got an umbrella.
you love to give an umbrella at the Move to Millions conference. I still have my Move to Millions umbrella. Okay. So back to that piece. So I still do believe manifesting with the Holy Spirit. However, and especially you're one of the coaches who helped me with this, is understanding that the embodiment of what we say we believe. So
Yeah.
manifesting, sometimes I feel like what I want is outside of me, or magnetizing, meaning I am all what I want also wants me back. So I draw things towards me versus the energy of pursuit.
And you're already it, right? Like
Yeah.
magnetize, it's coming to you. Manifest is you're chasing it, right? So yeah, so I like that. I like that. That's so good. So good. So good. Now, okay, this prayer is posture. I just wanted to just give a moment of silence for that. Because what I loved about what you said, specifically around that piece of prayer being posture, or let me say it this way, what I feel like you're saying between the words that you said is that if the conversation that you have with the Father is truly an alignment and an embodiment of what he has already promised you and created a provision for, then the way you approach it, him, and everything that's happening surround that thing that you are asking and desiring is different. Right? Like you cannot come happenstancedly. I know that's not a word, y'all, but just go with me. Like it's so intentional. Like, and what I feel like I'm hearing you say, and please tell me if I'm right or if I'm off or we need to tweak it, is that even the prayers that we utter, our spirit utters those prayers in the intentionality of the promise and the provision that God has already made, because In Genesis 1:26, he said, let us make man in our image and likeness. So we are literally God's, understanding who God is and what he gave us. And we're able to regurgitate that back to him through the things that we pray, the conversations that we have with him, from the posture of understanding and believing that it has already happened, even if we don't yet see it showing up in our life experience. Am I right? Am I off?
Right. That's it. And some. You added some. Yes. Yes. And it's fun to have this conversation with you because this is one of the messages you stand on.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. And it's like, when I think about it was around 2013 when I really started to get the unction that faith and business should be in alignment. And I don't think I was the first. I feel like there may have been a few voices, but the voices weren't loud enough because not enough people got the memo that they didn't have to put their faith to the side, that they didn't have to choose, that they really could love God and make millions. And at that point, of course, we weren't talking about millions back in 2013. That was a later revelatory word. But we were always clear that we didn't have to choose, that we could have more than we even thought we had capacity for. And we had to learn how to expand our capacity for it to come in, right? And when I think about, even in the word, and I think about the parable of the talents, which is probably my funny money passage my favorite money passage in the Bible, is the parable of the talents, because the way you see money is about the way you see yourself, right? And we see that through the three servants. Two of them were bold and courageous and confident, and so they went out and multiplied the money. One of them, in fear and questioning their value, like there are people right now listening to this show that because the market has changed and it's taking a little bit longer to get the yes, they are ready to give up. They're secretly in the classifieds looking for a job because they don't think that they have what it takes. And so in fear, they're burying their talents. Oh, what happened to the one who buried, right? He got ostracized. He got banished. He got kicked the hell out. Never to experience the mastery that God promised to the two who doubled. He said, well done, thy good and faithful servant. Thou hast become a master over this one thing. I'm going to make you a master over more. And that's what happens with money, right? If you can see yourself differently, in that prayer is a posture. The only way to pray and to know that God hears you is to go to him fully seeing yourself as he sees you. So what you're saying to him is not a question. Like, you're not asking God if he can. You're decreeing and declaring to God that he will, because he already said that, first of all, my words will not return unto you void. And if you ask me, if you believe me and you do not doubt me, then you will have it. So that whole prayer is a posture thing. Yeah.
Girl, you got me about to run.
Oh my gosh, that's so good.
Connects, because you were the first I heard the word embodiment, but it speaks faith. How do we embody our faith? Because if I'm standing on the word, not only am I not coming with a question mark, can God, but I'm coming with excitement because I already know God will. And I say this today as we record is September 24th, 2024. One of my sorority sisters texted me yesterday. She said, hey, what are you and hubby doing on February 15th? Her Links chapter is doing an event. And right now I'm single. And what I said to her is, get me 2 tickets.
I love it.
Because I believe in God for a husband. And the fact that it fell on her heart to say that to me, I said, yes, God, yes, man, we're going to be there.
Yeah. And I mean, and that's how it started. Like, I remember, and some of the listeners have heard me share pieces of this story before I met my husband. I created capacity for him, right? You got to prepare a place. I remember a woman, I can't even remember who the woman was in my life at the time, but I remember distinctly being asked a question. I was dating this guy who was not my husband. And she said, if your husband were to show up right now, would you miss him because you're in a place you're not supposed to be? And I was like, oh, okay, you got to go, because I need to create space. I need to prepare a space for my husband. And I literally prepared a space. Like, at that particular point in time, I was living in like a 2,500 square foot home, 2-car garage, double sinks in the bathroom. Like, I literally took half of everything out so that there would be space for the man. I didn't know if we would actually live in my home, but I wanted to prepare space because here's what I want y'all to catch that are listening right now. What you desire cannot flow in unless you have space for it. See, some of you are praying and believing for $1 million business, but you have not actually created capacity for $1 million business. And that is why you don't have one. Like, people look at me like I have 12 heads when I tell them it's not another strategy that you need, but it is, in fact, the exercise of embodiment. It is literally creating capacity. And most people are living in the lack that is their life experience, and it is taking up all the space. So abundance, an abundance of resource, an abundance of clients, an abundance of speaking opportunities, an abundance of media, an abundance of whatever you desire, an abundance of, cannot flow into your life experience because you're full at the end. There's no place. You can't even find a manger. Like, there's no place. I know I'm mixing metaphors and throwing crazy stories and all in there, but like, you're missing it because you haven't created capacity. So Charreah has given us a really amazing blueprint, because I believe that creating capacity is about studying yourself. The Bible talks about studying to show thyself approved. Maybe some of you might think I'm leaning a little bit to the left, but I'm going to take that a step further and say part of that studying, it's not just the word, right? It goes on to say a workman needeth not being ashamed, right? It's not just studying the word, but it is also studying yourself and seeing yourself the way that God has always seen you. God's vision has never been blurry when it comes to you. He told us in Jeremiah, before you were formed in your mother's womb, he knew and approved you. So you literally came here fully approved for everything that you endeavor, everything that sits in your spirit that you want to bring into your life experience. If it is not here yet, it's not because God is a lie. It's because you have not fully embodied and created the capacity for that. And I feel like I have to say this to y'all right here, right now, and then I'm gonna hand it back over to Charreah. The only way to create the capacity is to become a student of yourself. That's what I'm gonna call this episode, Charreah, student of yourself, or some variation thereof.
I love it.
It's so good.
So, I mean, every double tap, coach, this was, whew, it is the life changing, because I think, and particularly why we have to have this conversation, because particularly as women, particularly as people of color, Black women, we are taught we need to do more. And it is the being and the embodiment, but I can't be what I don't become one with. And so I love it. I'm excited.
Yeah, so good. Anything else you want to share before we switch gears?
I got a lot I want to share.
Okay. Well, the floor is yours, ma'am.
No, I just it feels so good to be here. And particularly I feel compelled. I just spoke at a women's conference. Actually, my mentor Sylvia, her I Am Woman conference over the weekend, and it confirmed my assignment to encourage more leaders, particularly 70% of the leaders we serve in my company are historically underrepresented and marginalized, women and people of color. And so I know God just put it so heavy on me to encourage more people to speak up and share their stories. And so I would be remiss not to talk a little bit around why that is so important and how it not only changes your life, but it changes the lives of those around you. And my top 2 tips when it comes to, and I shared them over the weekend, and I knew I was meant to, I'm like, I'm not leaving any mic without making sure I say these 2 things to people. And the first is to increase your shine, to increase your impact. The first thing is to press send. And so, as someone who has spoken on stages, spoke at, I tell the story of a former coworker of mine who was working at Black Enterprise, and I was interested in learning more about speaking opportunities. Black Enterprise does a lot of live events. I sent her an email at the beginning of November, heard nothing back. 2 weeks later, sent a follow-up email, heard nothing back. The next week, within 4 weeks, I had sent her 3 emails, heard nothing back, and then followed up again. And this time, she booked me to speak at Black Enterprises Soar Experience. They partner with TD Jakes, 1,000 entrepreneurs on flyers. And I always tell that story because we have to be willing to show up and press in. So I just recorded my first TEDx talk 2 weeks ago, actually. That was my 5th time applying for a TED experience. It was phenomenal. I don't wish I had done it sooner, but what if I had stopped after the 3rd time? And so in this environment, it just fell on my heart to encourage more leaders, and particularly women, to press in, to believe what you have to say matters, and there are people waiting on us to speak up and show up. And the last one quickly is we're not waiting. One of the reasons I love Darnyelle, one of the reasons we're listening to this podcast right now is she decided she wasn't waiting for someone else to give her a show. She had what it takes to change lives. And so book yourself. My number one tip to shine is to book yourself, because it also, people see me like, oh, I see you have clients here, and I do. And one of our clients, Lisa Nichols, was on the Tamron Hall show, an 11-minute segment. In 11 minutes, they showed 13 pieces of B-roll, right? It was a segment the day before she got married for the first time in her 50s. On the day she got engaged at 52, she took her phone and she recorded herself and just caught the emotion in the moment. And fast forward a few years later, she's on Tamron Hall show. They show that video. And so I just want to encourage us to know, part of studying ourselves also means honoring that my story is worth capturing. My insight is worth capturing. So I stop there to say, make sure you're not afraid to put yourself out there, and we're not waiting on anybody else to book us. We will book ourselves.
That's so good. And I do on Wednesdays, we do the Move to Millions Minute, which is an affirmation based on the full length episode. So our affirmation, the Wednesday after when this episode airs, will be something around my story is worth capturing. So I'm gonna write us an affirmation for that. So that is awesome. Oh my gosh, Charreah, this has been amazing. Just before I got 2 more things I want to do. And first, we alluded to it a little bit at the start of our time together, that I've had the honor and privilege to serve as one of your coaches and mentors when we did some work together. And so I just want to ask you a couple of questions about your experience. First being, why did you choose to invest? Like you said earlier, we have been friends for a while. Why did you choose to invest in yourself through coming to work with me in one of our programs?
Yeah, well, first of all, you made it very irresistible. So you showed up. First, I love the messaging and name of Move to Millions. I love when you make that switch. It was one of my prayers to want to grow my business and revenue. And so the fact that you were so unapologetic and you were so vocal to talk about you don't have to choose between loving God and making millions, was so resonated with me as a God girl, as a minister. I said, I need this in my life. And someone who's assigned to the marketplace, I was looking for mentorship. And then I came to the Move to Millions. I've come to the last 3, at least 2 conferames.
You've been at all of them.
Yeah, okay, it's been 3. Has it been 3? I've been to all 3. Let me rewind that. I've been to all 3 Move to Millions conferences.
All 3.
Delaware,
and telling other people about it, because how about I'm in the vineyard?
Yes.
And somehow we got to talking about my book, and I'm like, yeah, it's called Move to Millions. And your girlfriend was like, Move to Millions. Sure. Like literally.
Shout out to my line sister Tashawn. Every powerful women in business I know about Move to Millions. They know the book, they know the podcast, they know the event, because it's such fertile, good ground. And, as you said, I worked 10 years at Essence. I've gone to over 100 women's empowerment events. And yours is something sacred and different, where it really has both the spiritual strength plus the real tactical step-by-step guide. And I'm a girl who likes a system. And so when I came to Move to Millions last year, I said, I need to get in a program. I did the 1-year program that was business changing. That's when I really understood the systems I needed to put in my business to grow our capacity, as we talked about, and our sales. And I'm having our best year yet in business. And so much of the systems and our ability to have, I hit 5 years earlier this year, 5 years since my last day in corporate in February. And what it used to take me a year to make, within 6 weeks, our company had closed that. And it's because of a year with Darnyelle and being in communities and working with coaches who gave me systems. And so specifically for you, I learned so much around selling. I learned how to better organize my offers, and I really had, and also how to grow my team, because you
Mhm.
can't really hit those higher levels of impact if you don't grow as a leader to both hire and train efficiently.
Nice. I love that. I remembered you saying when we did the count up on stage at this past Move to Millions, that was my abundance o'clock alarm. The listeners know about that because I did a whole episode on what would abundance do. At on the stage when we did the count up, and I think it surprised you when you did the math to realize that in a year's time, $400,000 is what you had created through working with us at a team. Talk to us a little bit about the difference that has made.
I mean, the confidence I have as a leader impacts everything in your business. And so it gave me both the clarity of like, I could do it, the confidence, and to unapologetically sell. So you talk about that increase. We're right now in closing for a 270K contract with a federal agency. And part of that was getting my systems better so that I'm literally just at my cousin's wedding on the dance floor doing an electric slide. And one of his friends is like, oh, tell me about your business, and I'm able to confidently share what I do because I've gotten my stories tighter, I've gotten my systems tighter, and I've organized myself in a way that I can confidently communicate, because there's so much money out here. There's
There's no
so
shortage.
opportunity out here. And so I was really able to better organize and tighten my systems. I love your B2B sales training that is in the portal. And so it was so many things that I was able to take templates and train and grow. And back to the capacity point, I think I'll speak for myself as someone who's gone through burnout. I knew part of me hadn't gone harder to sell more sooner because I was nervous around having to fulfill more. And so one of the things you were really great, and what I loved about your coaching and training, was it taught me how to build a business truly and how to train team and have systems that I could grow my sales without feeling like more work, more money didn't have to mean more problems and more work if I did it
Yeah.
right.
Oh, so good. So good. And then my last question for you, Charreah, or maybe I have two more questions. My next question is, what surprised you the most about working with me and my team?
First of all, you were the first program I had that allowed people to upload things for review. And so
Mhm.
as I was building out trainings, as I was building out different parts of the business, I was able to submit them to review, which was really powerful. And it just, in a time where I was really building so many things from scratch or organizing things, I felt so supported and safe. It was great community. So shout out to Christy, who was one of my kind of biz besties I met in the program. What also was really how organized, there was a formula for everything. And I'm
Mhm.
a nerd alert. My first fraternity, I'm a Delta, but my first Greek letter organization was Mu Alpha Theta, which is the math fraternity. So I
Okay.
left. And so the fact that you have so many good formulas, but I'll say this, I would be remiss. The biggest breakthrough that I had inside of our year of coaching was the importance of understanding a sales pipeline.
Mhm.
And that you tell us now, and you don't hold back. You give gems that are great on the podcast, and you go deeper and have whole trainings inside of the coaching programs. But the idea of I needed to 4 times my goal, it really reset me and made me feel like even as an entrepreneur, you can have predictable revenue. And I think one of the reasons, I'll speak for me and a lot of the clients I coach now who are looking to make that transition from employee to entrepreneur, is you feel like, oh, I can't have predictable revenue if I'm an entrepreneur. And that's not true. And Darnyelle was one of the first coaches I did work with who really broke down how to build a pipeline so that you could have predictable revenue even as an entrepreneur.
Nice, 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 nice. And then the last thing would be if someone were to walk up to you tomorrow and say, hey, I'm looking at Dr. Darnyelle and her programs. What do you think? What would you say?
So first of all, they do, even if they don't ask and they say, I'm looking to work with a coach, and I'm like, what do you need? You're one of the top coaches. I'm like, you should check her out and get the resources. So what I would say about working with Dr. Darnyelle, working with Move to Millions, is it is a unique, gifted space where you have both the spiritual principles, strength, where you feel fully safe and supported as a believer in God. And you get someone who is engaging, smart, and has proven formulas that you can plug in. So for anyone who doesn't have time or money to waste, who believes in God and knows God wants you to be wealthy, then this is a space you definitely should be considering.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. All right. And so just before we close out our interview, I have to ask you our 3 wisdom questions, just to give them to you again. What is the book? What is the quote? And what is the tool that has been instrumental on your own move to millions? And I'm going to write those down because we put them in the show notes so that people can continue to build out their professional library as a result of the show.
So books, can I do 1.5? So 2 quick books: The Big Leap, Gary Hendricks,
Okay.
life changing. I try to read it every year. Also, Trust, Iyanla Vanzant, because to really make millions and next level impact, you've got to have access to your power, which means you can't hold on to any grudges, which is a third. And I know you said 1, but radical forgiveness is also right up there.
That is a good one. Yeah.
It really helped me. So that is my books. For tool, clearly I'm a journaling girl. So journaling is a big one for me. Meditating is a big one for me. Yeah, I would say those as tools of regular practice that help me get back to myself and access my power. I would definitely say those. Now, from a pure content perspective, I would say also one of my favorite AI tools is Opus Pro, which if you've got video, you're speaking, and you can throw it in there and get you some good video clips and captions.
Nice. And then the quote, what is one quote that whenever you're having one of those moments, this quote just kind of picks you back up out of the ethers or out of the ashes and puts you back into the ethers?
I'm gonna quote my mom, who I know others have said it, but I know she said it to me. Keep the main thing the main thing. Of just staying focused. One of my favorite, I have a couple of favorite scriptures. I definitely lean on Romans 8:28. All things work for the good of them. So even on the tough days or the things I didn't ask for, I still believe all things work together for the good of those who love God. And I love God.
Yeah, and are called according to his purpose. So yes, yes, yes. Well, Charreah, this has been amazing. And just like I knew it would be, I love you so much. I'm so grateful to know you. I'm excited for all the nuggets and gems that you've shared and how listeners are going to come back to this episode over and over and over just to continue the journey of posturing for what it is that they most desire and holding space to be able to magnetize what they know God already desires for them into their life experience. So thank you so much for being here. And we'll see you guys next time. Take care.